Yo, attention footies, football players, and historians. And now for something completely different. If you check the history books, you'll find that the first play-by-play broadcast of a football game, American football game, is in Thanksgiving Day, 1920 on WTAW, Watch the Aggies Win, and it was actually done in Morse code. There's been this legendary rivalry between the farm boys of an agricultural and mechanical engineering school and the tea-sipping sissy pants of the University of Texas, Austin. You know what? We've traditionally had a little bit of a problem because farm boys, harvest is in the fall, football is in the fall. And so we've been a bit inconsistent, but the UT and Texas A&M rivalry has been one of the world's great ones. It's gone on for way more than a century now, and what I'm about to talk about happened almost about a century ago. And we've had some scandalous stuff, but we were home to he had coached at one place before he came to A&M, but I think the winningest football coach in all of football history, who I met when I was 3 years old, he wasn't much to meet. I'm sorry, Paul Bear Bryant got his start before he went to Alabama. He got his start at winning at Texas A&M and with my brother and Heisman Trophy winner John David Crow. You think I'm going one way here, I'm going to be a total gas bag this morning. You're severely mistaken. This is just one little aspect of it, is that because, I'm sorry, I had to. So keep that in mind. The first ever was a Marconi, patented radio or whatever, 1920, play-by-play in Morse code. You can see them boys just tapping away. And I don't recall the outcome, but I think it was a little after that. We, the Aggies, farmers fight, home of Rutter's Rangers. They were big in the D-Day. They were the ones that scaled up those cliffs and took out the Nazi gun emplacements. General Earl Rudder. Well, once upon a time, the Aggies finally got enough farm boys on their team. We have this 12th man tradition too, where it used to be a good school before the cultural Marxists took over, but anyway, I only really came back to A&M because my father was dying of benzene-induced leukemia. I turned down the last 5-year contract ever offered by Stanford. I have always been primarily an academic type. So on with the story of BEVO. Beeves, and the masculine BEVO. Anyway, one time the Aggies whooped them tea-sipping sissy pants in Austin 13-0. So if you're not familiar with branding, now I know the Australians and the English, the English don't have to really brand, do they? In Texas, where we used to do Open Range, it's actually Open Range, I think, is one of the great movies with, I met, Robert Duvall. He's the one that actually turned back and chatted me up. I was waiting outside of Walgreens, and Brian, he's lovely old man. And when we got to chatting, I go like, "You're Robert Duvall," and he just kind of gave me that smirk. And he was completely bald. He's been using glue on hair for a long time. But Aggies swept the T-Sips. 13, I'll do it to you, 13-0. And boy, them UT boys was, they had to call in a branding expert, and they came up with the word BEVO, meaning beef, in the masculine. Kind of like it's almost, Latino, but not, and they had to use one of them branding irons that got that little rolling wheel on it, because you got to get it red hot, and you got to do it perfect. They weren't using, and they turned 13-0, the winning score, into the name BEVO, branded in the side of a steer, longhorn steer, because you can't have them fully, juiced up. And also is for the sense and sensibility of the ladies, T-sipping ladies, T-sips. They didn't want to be seeing any junk on that. No. So that, in kind of its briefest form, is the origination of the name BEVO. They didn't really get a choice in it. A bunch of Aggie students managed to get into, after the victory, get into the area where they had their mascot, and they took one of them rolling deals and just 13-0. So now you know the history of the first ever play-by-play radio broadcast of a footy game in America. All right. And why BEVO, the Longhorn steer, is called BEVO is because they lost 13-0 that year. And now I'm going to end it with a bonus round. This was actually at the time I was telling you about when Trump fucked up and my medication had gone out of production and people were coming in, so I was having to go all the way to the next county. And one morning, this is how, this is that kind of, because Robert Duvall has been one of my favorite characters. Maybe identify with him because I have that same follicularly challenged pate would be the proper term. And that place is kind of, I was actually, because I'm gimped up, I don't even trust my own legs to drive. I use handicap transit a lot. And there was only one bench that had that had any possibility of shade, and I went to it, and it was actually one of the columns holding up the overhang of the building. And I was just sitting there, and this guy walks by. He had parked his truck all the way around the corner down far at the end. And he'd walked by, and he said hello. And he said something like, "Well, you found some shade." I said, "Sir, I'm a native Texan. I can spot the nearest mesquite bush or palm tree or whatever." And as soon as he heard my dialect, Robert Duvall doubled back, and he leaned his head into the shade of that column. And we had a lovely chat. He may have been there with, he's got a ranch in Virginia, which is where we Texans come from. He's, like a lot of people, are kind of queer for Texans. And no offense. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Jerry Seinfeld. And we had a lovely little chat and stuff. And he had it wasn't exactly a late model truck, but it was lacquered up nice. It was good shape, perfect shape for its age. That was Robert Duvall. And he's got a smirk that's kind of like Bruce Willis's, almost does kind of a left-handed. I'm not in smirking mode this morning, but that's kind of the brief story of the first radio broadcast of a footy game in America. Why BEVO is named BEVO, and my brief interaction with a guy that I admired until his last couple of films because he was going all SJW on us, and at least he got hooked up with that hot little Latina girl. You got to see his wife, man. That's what's keeping him alive. I know why he gets up in the morning, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying, got to chop that morning wood now.